Relationship and connection, a series that I have just loved because that is a favorite topic of mine. So far we've enjoyed Reverend Sydney talking about relationship with God. G.D. Ward talked about relationship with ourselves. Today my topic is how we create and grow in community. What are the benefits we receive? What are the benefits we give from joining together in loving and supportive community? That's the first part of my talk. The second part of my talk is what do we do with that? First things first. Each one of us has an answer to why we come here every Sunday, why we join together in community. We all have personal reasons for doing that, but I suspect when you dig deeper, our answers would be very similar. We find connection, we find renewal, we find love, we find support, we find all the things we just found in our prayer session with Reverend Sydney. We are refreshed. Every Sunday when we come here, we are reminded of things that are important to us. We help ourselves unpack the truth of who we are. And we go out refreshed and renewed to be our true selves out in the world every week. As human beings, we are just wired to live in relationship. One of the toughest things they can do in correctional systems is put somebody in solitary. It is torture. We are wired to be together. We are wired to be connected. Now, we know that on a very visceral level. We know it because we live it. But I want you to feel very assured because we don't really know it until science tells us it's true, right? So, we're fine. There have been so many studies that tell us that we are wired to live in connection, that our happiness is increased by being connected. In researching this talk, I looked at a 2010 PBS special called This Emotional Life. Did anybody ever see that? It was a 3-part series. It was aired in 2010. It's not right there. And it was a series that basically talked about why we engage in social relationships, how they help us improve our health, improve our resilience, how they help us cope with depression, with anxiety. Part of the series dealt with the emotional and psychological benefits of community and the happiness that we obtain through community. I learned that the definition of happiness that most people agree on is not what we might think of when we think of happiness. When I think of happiness, I think of bliss, I think of glee, I think of like, it's my birthday, somebody gave me something electronic. That's happiness. But no, the definition of happiness is really a more sustaining thing. It's a more permanent thing. It's a feeling of well-being. It's a notion that you are being of service, that others find value in what you provide, that there's a reason for you to be there. It's the notion that we are living a meaningful life. Do you agree that that really is the notion of happiness? Another thing I found out, which is interesting, and you can look at this series and learn more about it, is that each of us has what's called a set point of happiness. They say that, you know me, I love statistics, about 50% of your happiness is something that is just wired into you. You can change it, but it's basically your attitude or your approach. And it's called your happiness set point, no matter what happens. And we call these people glass half full people, or glass half empty people. The glass half full people have a happiness set point which is just higher. So no matter what happens, they can kind of bounce back. They feel positive. They share their joy with others regardless of circumstances. The other 10% of your happiness is kind of figured on what's going on in your life, events in your life. The other 40%, they say, is within our ability to manage. It is based upon our focus, our intent, our activities. 40% of our happiness is impacted by how we approach the world, how we live in the world, our activities, how we get up every day and say, it's going to be a good day. I mean, many of you know my daughter, Catherine, who is 23, and she has cerebral palsy, she's legally blind, she has developmental delays, but every morning she gets up and she says, it is a great day. It is a great day and I'm going to have a wonderful day. Oh my God, I can't even think of where her happiness set point is, because that's her attitude. So that's how we can approach happiness in our lives. We all need to feel that we are of value to others, and we all need to approach life with the expectation that it is going to go well, that we will thrive today, we will prosper today, we will be happy today. A common misperception, especially in our culture, is that people who are self-reliant, who stand on their own 2 feet, are the happiest and the healthiest. That is a very common idea. Freedom to us, what does freedom to us mean? It means the freedom to be left alone. How many people have heard that? I don't know about you, but I don't want to be left alone. I don't want that kind of freedom. I've been alone. It's no fun. That is not where we get our happiness. It's not where we get our sense of connection. What is our popular myths? I can be left alone. I can stand on my own 2 feet. Leave me alone. I can handle it. Whatever it is, I'll just handle it myself. Well, that's not where we derive our happiness. Humans are social creatures. Even independent, self-reliant people, and there are people who are more self-reliant than others, need connections. Studies show over and over. The happiest people are those with strong connections to family and friends. Now, another misperception, and this is one I think we all fall into, is that people who identify as introverts need fewer friends than people who identify as extroverts. That's not true. It may be that people who identify as introverts have fewer friends, but everybody gets a boost, everybody gets a lift from being in close relationship with people that they value. Everybody needs relationships. To support them, to celebrate with them, to find joy with them, to support them when they're having difficulties or issues. The other thing I found, and this is a side note, is don't be too quick to identify yourself as an introvert or an extrovert. I spent years identifying myself as an introvert, which meant it was okay to have no friends. But I found out, a year or so ago, that I'm not an introvert, I'm an extrovert, so now I want friends. And did I come to the right place? But the point is, everybody needs support relationships, no matter how they define themselves. So, what have we learned from all the studies on relationship? Close, supportive relationships are critical to our happiness and our well-being. They give us permission to love, permission to cry, permission to support each other. They give us folks with whom to celebrate good times. They also give us diversity of experience. Coming together in community gives us unexpected, diverse experiences. There's a lot of talk going on today about how isolated we are while we are so connected. You've heard that. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Those are certainly connections, but they don't provide the spontaneity, the excitement, the spark that happens when people come together in community. There's a reason we still do this. There's a reason this group is not a virtual group. We're not just having a big Facebook chat. Because we get something by being together. Tara Brach writes that the spiritual path is not a solo endeavor. In fact, the very notion of a self who is trying to free herself or himself is a delusion. We are in it together, and the company of spiritual friends helps us realize our interconnectedness. So, we've talked about community in general. There are additional benefits from coming together as a spiritual or as a religious community. No matter how you define yourself, whatever your faith tradition is, there are additional benefits, including strong social supports and a shared feeling of meaning and purpose. We come together, we believe many similar things, we support each other in our efforts to grow spiritually. These are undertakings which we do together. We celebrate together. It is no mistake that studies show that if you are a member of a religious or a spiritual community, you tend to be a happier person. You just tend to have an enhanced set of you just tend to have enhanced well-being. As a matter of fact, studies have shown some of the particular benefits: lower stress, lower blood pressure, faster recovery from surgery, that's a good one, longer life, stronger immune systems, less alcohol and drug abuse, and you tend to be more forgiving. This is not a surprise to any of us, is it? Now, one of the things that I've been very interested in, and then I did some research on for this talk, was the growth of Sunday assemblies. Who here has heard of Sunday assemblies? Sunday assemblies started a couple years ago in Britain. And what they are is folks who do not specifically identify with a religious tradition, or they consider themselves non-theists or atheists. They thought, church is cool. I like coming together to celebrate. We come together to sing. We come together to hear inspirational talks. So two folks started a movement called Sunday Assemblies. And it's a secular Sunday gathering to do what we do, except they don't worship. They just listen to inspirational talks on general principles. They share ideas. They sing. They celebrate. They clap. They have a great time. It is a movement which is zooming. It is taking off because of people's need for connection and for community. I thought that was just fascinating. According to the Sunday Assembly website, there's a Sunday Assembly in Atlanta, by the way, 35 towns have launched Sunday assemblies, adding to the more than 24 that were already going. The group says its mission is to tackle loneliness and social isolation. They say that recent studies show that 40% of American adults say that they are lonely. That's up from 20% in the 1980s. And think about that. Because we have the internet, we are more connected than we have ever been. Why are we more lonely? Because we're just not coming together in community. And especially in the U.S., religious or spiritual organizations like this one enable us to do that. So I think we have a pretty firm handle on the benefits of community. We feel better, we serve each other, we celebrate together, we grow together, we have great classes together. This is no mystery. Okay, so what's the next step? Where do we take our knowledge of the benefits of community, of our potential to grow through community? Our challenge is to widen our circle. And that's what I want us to think about today. As we sit here in this room, our challenge is to pretend that the roof flies off, that the walls fall down, that all of a sudden we are just in the world, in the greater community of all beings, of all people, of all life, because that is really the community of which we are a part. We know that separation is an illusion. We know that we are connected, we are interconnected. So as we take what we have learned here, the love, the support, the forgiveness, the compassion, our challenge is to apply it everywhere. Sometimes I feel that I come in, I've said this in the past, I feel that I come in here and I get to be something that I somehow feel I don't get to be elsewhere. I have to be something else elsewhere. But here, I get to be me. I get to show my vulnerable side. I get to cry, which I never do. I get to be fearful. I get to be hugged. All those things which we give ourselves permission to do here. But we have a greater challenge. Our challenge, my challenge, is to be brave. To take how we are here, to take the permissions we give ourselves here and walk in the world and apply it there. It is all our community. We are selling ourselves short. We are selling the reason we are here short if we just stop here. If we go out that door and we say, okay, now I'm going to be different. Our job is not to be different. Our job is to be our authentic self there. To take the life, the essence of what we create here, what we celebrate here, and just walk over these flattened walls and share it in the world. That is our challenge, is to create, that's our vision, a global community centered in peace, love, and joy. That is how the message of love, compassion, and peace spreads. That is how we put feet to what we say. One of the books I've been reading lately that I enjoy is by Wayne Teasdale. Who knows Wayne Teasdale? Who has read The Mystic Heart? He is or actually he's deceased now, but he was a Christian mystic. And he wrote a book called A Monk in the World. And he started out as kind of a separate, kind of contemplative mystic. He would sequester himself off and pray and meditate. And then one day, he was in India, deciding to spend the rest of his life in a community there. And the guy who ran the community said, no. Your mission is in the West. Your mission is to go home and show how a contemplative mystic, one who is rich in a life of spirituality, makes a difference in the world. He knew, and Wayne Teasdale went and did, that the world desperately needs what he called, quote, a spirituality of intense involvement and radical engagement with the world. Think about that. A spirituality of radical engagement with the world, outside our community here, out in the larger community, with those in need, with those who are forgotten, with those who are dispossessed, with those who are marginalized. The spiritual practitioner does not avoid engagement with others. The spiritual practitioner embraces it from what Teasdale termed was a different dimension, from the enlarged perspective of love as perceived by the gospel in its utter simplicity and clarity. To love, to forgive, to teach, to reconcile, to heal. Isn't that the point of our spiritual journey? To be able to walk that walk in every encounter we have? Don't you find that as you grow in your spiritual journey, you know, the world widens, but your choices become more limited. You see how you are connected with everything, but your choices to be other than what you truly are, they disappear. You have the drive to just act in accordance with your true nature. Your ability to put on the face, to put on the mask, it just vaporizes. Does this resonate with you? It does, and it does with me, and we're all on the path. We're all growing. Sometimes your choices mean your life has to change. I remember when I was working in a litigation firm, and I was defending companies against individuals who sued them. I was experiencing this issue. And one day we were settling a case, and I went into the lawyer for whom I was working, and I said, I was the defendant, and I said that I wanted to give the plaintiff a little bit more money, just a little bit more money, because they had asked for it. And the partner looked at me and he said, why? Totally foreign. And I said, because I think it would be healing. And at that point, I knew that my future in that line of work was very limited. Because that's not what we do. But that's what I had become. And so here I am, and I'm not there. But... teaches, when we know ourselves to be connected to all others, acting compassionately is simply the natural thing to do. We just walk, our path becomes much more focused, much more straight, and there we are. That is our community. Now, what that means is that as we widen our circle, it brings us beyond those who look like us, those who think like us, or even those who believe like us. Teasdale writes, yet one definition of true community is that it includes individuals who are difficult or even abhorrent. And here is our true challenge as mystics in the world, to create community with those who are so different from us that we feel we have nothing in common with them. As our world becomes smaller through a growing common culture, the true test of community will be our tolerance for our most profound differences and love for the most challenging among us. It's easy to love folks who are like us, who think like us, who believe like us, who look like us. Our challenge is to love all, even when they don't. And not just love them inside, love them in our walk. Treat them as our brothers and sisters in our actions every day. To walk on this earth in the attitude of peace, of love, of non-judgment, of welcome. Each Sunday we sing the song Namaste. The divine in me sees the divine in you. I came across another definition of Namaste which kind of broadens it, and I'd like to share it with you. I honor the place in you in which the entire universe dwells. I honor the place in you which is of love, of truth, of light, and of peace. When you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me, we are one. I love that. We are, it's heart to heart. It's soul to soul. When we end here, we say, look at the face of God next to you. Our challenge as we develop the greater community is as we walk out of here to see the face of God, to see our own face in every face we see. That is the definition of living in community. Our actions affect not only ourselves, they affect all. I came across a great story by Rabbi Terry Bookman. He tells the story that a man in a boat began to bore a hole under his seat. When his fellow passengers asked him what he was doing, he answered, "What do you care? Am I not boring under my own seat?" He's like, oh, darn. Yes and no. So one of the things we need to consider and celebrate is the fact that whatever we do, and Red Turtle's going to talk about this more next week, whatever we do, good and not so good, impacts all of us. We are never just boring a hole under our own seat. You know, I was thinking about the notion of connection, and I use the word connection a lot, and it suggested to me that even the word connection indicates some kind of separateness, because it means that I am connected to you and you are connected to me, and we have this whole like chain, and it indicates that we're separate beings that are connected. But I can't think of another word, but I want to step it back. It's not that we are connected. Eliminate the trappings of our bodies, our egos, our minds, all those things which we tell ourselves make us special, make us different. Step away from that. At bottom, we are all of God. We are all of the same source. We all shine with the same light. So while I say we are connected, maybe a better way to say it is we are all of the one. We are like the water underneath the waves. We pop up, we individuate, we're separate, and then we go back down. Thousands and thousands of times. To be of each other, and in each other, and as each other. That's how we need to see community. That's how we need to see it when we walk outside these buildings. It's important to keep coming together to celebrate, but it is not the end in itself. It is the beginning. It is where we learn to love one another and celebrate one another and see ourselves in each other. Forgive, reconcile, and heal. But the bigger journey starts at 12:20 when we walk out those doors, and we do the same to every soul we meet. Let's take these thoughts.